So for the first part of the experiment, which is properties of starch, paste, and gel, I prepared my samples using equally 100 milliliter of water in 250 milliliter beaker. My samples are 6 grams of each of rice starch, cornstarch, potato starch, waxy cornstarch, and tapioca starch. First of all, we'll be adding the ingredients into the beaker, mix them up. Later we will heat them up, then cool them to room temperature to measure to observe the viscosity and measure the water activity of each sample. So first one is my rice starch sample. Be adding it to the beaker. Make sure to get the rest. So I'll be stirring my sample using the stirring rod, and I'll cover it with aluminum foil. So initially, before heating and after stirring each sample, I'll show you guys how each sample is looking like. This is the rice starch. This is the cornstarch. This is the potato starch. Waxy cornstarch. And tapioca starch. So starting with the rice starch sample, I'll start heating it on the hot plate using 350 Fahrenheit, and I'll be stirring it until the solution become clear and develop viscosity. Okay, here are the samples after heating. I'll let you guys observe the color and appearance of each one. This is the rice starch. This is the cornstarch. This is the potato starch. This is the waxy cornstarch. This is the tapioca starch. And we'll let all the samples cool down to room temperature. Then we will measure the water activity, and also I'll let you guys observe the color and appearance. So after cooling until room temperature, these are my samples. I'll show you guys. You can observe the color and appearance. Rice starch, cornstarch, potato starch, waxy cornstarch, and tapioca starch. And now I will move on to the step where we have to take the water activity measurement of each sample. So now I'm going to use my samples to measure their water activity. As I'm pouring half the cup of my sample, you can see the consistency. Okay, half full. Read. This was the cornstarch. Moving to the tapioca starch, filled half the cup with my sample. You can see the consistency. And read. Moving to the rice starch, you can see half full. And next is waxy cornstarch. half full. Ready? Lastly, the potato starch, half full. You can see. This is the water activity results for cornstarch. This is the water activity results for tapioca starch. Water activity results for rice starch. Water activity results for waxy cornstarch. Lastly, water activity results for potato starch. Okay, this is part 2 of the experiment, morphology of starch. I have a cornstarch sample, and you can see I used 100 milliliter of water, and I have one at each different temperature intervals. I'll start with room temperature, then we'll go to 45 Celsius, 65, 85, and 95. I'll show you guys how I will mix it, and that will be at room temperature, and I'll get a sample to observe under the microscope, and we will also use the consistency line spreadsheet so you guys can observe how viscous the sample is. So this is my cornstarch sample at room temperature. After stirring, I'm not gonna do a consistency line spread test for the room temperature, but I'll do a sample to observe under the microscope. So on the hot plate, my cornstarch sample at 350 Fahrenheit, I will be measuring the temperature, make sure it doesn't hit the bottom, until it's 45 Celsius. Okay, so I just reached 45 Celsius. Now I will take my sample to observe the consistency of my sample under the line spreadsheet. So in this part, I'll show you guys how to measure the consistency of each starch sample we used. First of all, this line spreadsheet is in millimeter. You can see the numbering. I will put my sample cover all the way to the top. I'll lift this part up and I'll let it travel maybe 30 seconds until it reaches the longest travel. Then we will record which number or which line spread did it reach. Okay, so my cornstarch sample at 45 Celsius, I will be doing the consistency line spread. Fill it all the way, lift it up, and go for 30 seconds. Alright, I just set the timer to 30 seconds and I'll start right now. Okay, at 45 Celsius, you can see how the starch went out of the range after 30 seconds. This is the results after 30 seconds for 65 degrees Celsius. This is the results after 30 seconds for 85 degrees Celsius. This is the results after 30 seconds for 95 degrees Celsius. Starting with cornstarch at room temperature, I will be taking a small sample of cornstarch and placing it onto a microscope slide. I will then add a drop of iodine and mix it with the cornstarch. Then I will cover it with the cover slip. So I just prepared my slides and I'm going to observe them under the microscope. As you can see, room temp 45, 65, 85, and 95. So I have my cornstarch slide ready. I'll place it and observe my sample under the microscope.